Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. This year I tested both of the top American branded luxury midsize SUVs, that being the Lincoln MKX and the new Cadillac XT5. I've taken both of these test drives and presented them together so that we can see them side by side or face to face, see how they stack up. The Lincoln MKX I tested was a near fully optioned reserve model with an upgrade in power with a 2.7-liter EcoBoost engine for a whopping 335 horsepower. Thus, it priced in at about $63,000. You can still go higher with the black label trim grade. The Cadillac XT5 was a more mid-grade trim coming in at $56,000 and some change. You can spend up into the $60,000s with more upgrades just like the Lincoln, but only one engine's available here, the 310 horsepower 3.6-liter V6. The all-new Lincoln MKX is built upon the same midsize chassis as the popular Ford Edge, both of them built at Ford's Oakville, Ontario, Canada assembly plant. For this generation MKX, however, it features its own unique design that shares not a single piece of sheet metal or trim with the Ford. At first blush, it's a very appealing design, I think. The lines and curves here tell a nice story, giving a strong shoulder line from the front to the rear three-quarter view. There, LED tail lamps tie together across the rear deck with chrome trims that give it a nice planted stance. Optioned here is the technology package that brings adaptive LED headlamps that frame out one of the best versions of Lincoln's dual-wing front grille design to date, though this theme will be replaced in a couple of years with the new face of Lincoln seen on the 2017 Continental and the MKZ. So if you like this face, you want to get one in the next year or so. Our tester here is near fully loaded with a reserve package in a pearlescent color they call white platinum. It has 20-inch wheels that, while large, don't look oversized here at all. They tie nicely into lower black cladding and a chrome rocker trim that's expected of a crossover, but more elegant here than many. First thing I want to point out here, this is a luxury premium model, which means it has 20-inch wheels on it. 18s are standard on the base model. When you get up to the mid and the top trim grades, you get 20-inch wheels. This one here has LED headlights here too. Very artfully sculpted, as you can see, and they actually turn with you at night, and they've got some really nice LED light ups there that have a nice vertical look when you're going down the road. The grille, very, very well put together, I think. There's a lot going on here, and this has sort of a satin chrome here as well as everywhere else on the vehicle. As we come down the side and around the rear, one thing I do want to sort of talk about is all the black plastic cladding that's here. Not a bad thing. Some people like it. Personally, though, when I look at $50,000, $60,000, I start thinking, you know, maybe body color or a contrasting paint color. The black plastic just seems sort of down in the base grades to me, but that's just personal opinion. Now, when you look at the styling back here, I like some of the elements. I love these taillights. They sort of have this wrap over effect that, well, it sort of plays to that fin thing that Cadillac's known for. Now, maybe I'm just the one seeing that, but I do like that very much. Up here, you've got a built-in spoiler with a big brake light that goes across the back, LED, just like those taillights. And down low here in the lower fascia, you've got big dual exhaust tips, which I think is important with a luxury vehicle. You really want to play up that premium effect and the performance effect, which this V6 does offer. Moving inside, the interior of our MKX was near fully outfitted with cappuccino premium leather seating, genuine open-pore wood trims, and most every comfort and convenience option on the list. It was light and airy in this color scheme, especially with the wide-open panoramic glass roof. Design of the dash is unique to the MKX, but not far removed from the Ford Edge, sharing much of its Ford-born switchgear and hardware. It does have a unique push-button shift selector, which frees up room on the center console for a closable phone and device bin. There's lots of storage here too, with 2 shelf spots in the center console down below the center stack, and of course the console also offers a large bin under the armrest in addition to a power opening glove box up front. This has the 22-way adjustable driver's seat. It's a $1,500 option, pretty spendy, but if you're going to have it, you need to know that there's several ways to adjust this, and it actually takes a little bit of time to get it dialed in. Now, this has controls down here on the side where you'd expect them, but because this goes 22 ways, you can't possibly do everything here. Up here on the screen, there's also a place that you can take and do a few more adjustments. Now, you have to flip through a menu or two to get to this point because we are talking about a My 4 touch system, which is several menu layers deep. But once you're here, you can actually adjust all the different metrics of the seat here, and it shows you on a diagram of the seat what you're actually doing. And I can actually feel a lot of these adjustments sort of creeping in on my back here. It's kind of a fun toy to play with. Now, another fun toy to play with is the massage feature. Right here, you can come in here and set this to auto massage your back, both the lower and the seat cushion. And it feels kind of good, I have to admit. And of course, the passenger also has this very nice feature. Now, if I'm driving, I'm not sure, I have not really tried driving, but sitting here, I kind of like it. Ahead of the driver in the MKX is a unique steering wheel with leather and wood trim that frames a TFT screen instrument cluster, also unique to the MKX. It has 2 dials that light up with digitally generated and customizable displays. I like it. As you can see, sitting back here in the back seat, there's plenty of space. I'm about 5'9", and I'm plenty comfortable as it relates to space. I'm not crowded, plenty of headroom, plenty of legroom up here, and these seats here, they're not all the way forward or back. They're just right there in the middle. There are some adjustments here, primarily the seat back rake. You can adjust it. It's actually got a pretty good amount of range. What there isn't is a sliding adjustment fore and aft. Not a big thing, but a lot of vehicles in this class are getting that now. Amenities back here include things like HVAC vents. There are seat heaters on this particular model and power ports, both a 110 outlet and a 12-volt outlet, but no USB ports, something that, again, a lot of competitors in this class are starting to get, so you can charge a device or in some cases also connect to the infotainment system. Of note, our MKX was optioned with a second row inflatable seat belts that can help reduce injury in a crash. That's why they look a little bit bulkier. Moving on to the cargo capacity, the rear seats fold down in a 60-40 split rather easily with a push of a button located just inside the driver's side of the cargo area. The floor is near flat and lined with very high quality materials. The interior of the XT5 is really one of the best places to be and really soak in what this vehicle is about. I like the new design. It's definitely fresh. It doesn't look like virtually anything you're going to find in the class, and the material quality in here is very impressive. Now this one here, I've got a two-tone light tan. I've got a black dash, a lot of soft touch stitching. It's virtually everywhere, on the dash panel, on the door panels, here on the console, down here on the console cup holder cover as well. They've really added a lot of that stuff around here to give you that handcrafted feel. Now the seating position here is the other thing I'm pretty impressed with. These seats are very firm, sort of a European feel, but they're very comfortable. There's a lot of adjustment range going on, and you do have memory here for the driver, a power tilt and telescoping steering wheel in this one, and it really does give you a nice car-like feel in here. You're sitting up high like you're in an SUV, but you feel like you're sitting down in this one. Very car-like. I like that. Storage in here is also very good. We've got a big, huge area down here. I've got 2 water bottles and a few other things in there. There's a place right here for your phone if you just like to lay it where it's easy to get to. Also down below, there's another storage area there where you could actually put a purse or something larger. Now this also has a wireless phone charger, and there's a slot right here in the console that you can slide a phone in. Now mine won't go all the way in there because I've got a big case on it, but you can actually slide your phone all the way down in there, get some wireless charging if it's compatible. So that's pretty cool. Lots of USB ports, a lot of power ports. So there's a lot of connectivity going on here when it comes to being able to charge your phone or other devices that you might have. The rear seat space back here is actually pretty comfortable, and I was surprised about that because at first blush it looked like the seat cushion here was a little bit on the low side. One of my pet peeves. What I found out is it's actually pretty high and it gives very good support. There's actually bolstering here, and it's pretty comfortable to sit in. They're pretty soft. Now there's some adjustments. They do slide fore and aft, and the seat backs do recline, but I'm not going to demonstrate that because it's very hard to do when you're sitting here in the seat. It's something you want to do before you get in. Now also, you've got a fold down armrest here, cup holders in it. Center console here has vents, always a good thing, and there's USB ports down there so you can plug and play. Now, if you do get the climate package, you'll upgrade, you'll get heated seats back here as well as adjustments so you can have climate control back here. You can control your own zone. Legroom, as you can see, very good. Headroom, very good, even with the panoramic roof, which usually takes a lot of room out of there. It's pretty good. I like that. Back there, really nice load deck back there. It's got aluminum rails built into it that you can put a number of accessories. This one has the cargo divider there, but there's other ones you can get that just plug right into that. Very cool thing. These seats, they fold down in a 60-40 split like virtually all of them do in this class, but they do it very easily. There's levers at the back. You can pull those levers and they go down automatically. And you can also do that here at the second row doors if you happen to be here. But the big thing is that you don't have to take the headrest off. They just go right down and they're just very easy to put down. Under the hood of our MKX is the optional of its two engines. With 32 more horsepower than the standard 3.7-liter V6, the 2.7-liter twin-turbocharged EcoBoost engine has 335 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. It comes standard with all-wheel drive and a 6-speed automatic transmission with steering wheel-mounted paddle shifters. The EPA rates it here at 17 mpg city, 24 mpg highway, and 19 mpg combined. Woo! Holy mackerel. Man, this thing's got a little bit of punch. Now I'm speeding. Let me slow down a little bit. So power's good. Power's very good with this engine, and turbo lag, not really an issue. The other thing I'm impressed with is this transmission actually does a very good job of delivering downshifts when you really put your foot in it. It doesn't delay, it doesn't hunt around, it just does it, and that's always a good thing. The only thing that I'd really note about this powertrain is this engine is a little bit on the noisy side, I think. It's the same engine you're going to find in an F-150, you're going to find it in a Ford Edge. It just sounds like the same engine that's in those vehicles, which is fine, but we're at $63,000 here, and in that price range, you're comparing against things like Lexus, you're comparing against BMW, Lexus, and I say that 3 times because they are very refined in their engines. Mercedes-Benz as well. Fuel economy. This really isn't the kind of EcoBoost engine that delivers the fuel economy like one of the small 4-cylinders. This is really all about horsepower, and so this week I've hit about 19 mpg, which is exactly what's promised by the window sticker, but it's not really class leading. Under the hood here, we've got General Motors 3.6-liter V6. Now, it's an engine that's been around for a while, but it's got a lot of upgrades for this year. They give it a little bit more power, but a lot more fuel economy. Here, we've got 310 horsepower and 271 pound-feet of torque going through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and this one has all-wheel drive. Now, the big news here is the fact that this has variable displacement technology. It can run on 4 cylinders, so when you're coasting or you don't need that extra power, it'll automatically cycle itself to a V4. When you ask for power again, automatically goes back up to a V6. This enables it to have fuel economy ratings with the all-wheel drive at 21 mpg combined and as high as 26 mpg on the highway. Well, how does it go? Got a nice growl to it. And the paddle shifters work pretty well for a non-sports car. They're actually pretty responsive. I had it in manual mode. It's got a sport mode, which dials up the transmission, the steering, the suspension. So this engine actually puts down a pretty good amount of power. It's still a pretty heavy vehicle, even though it is lighter than before. But this powertrain works pretty well. It's got a nice growl to it, as I said, a nice sound. It does seem a little bit grainier than, say, a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW 6. They cost a little bit more, but we're in the luxury class, so I have to make that comparison. Now, fuel economy, that's the one area where, this engine is more improved over the previous generation of the 3.6, rated up to 26, as I said, 21 mpg combined. Now, this week with it, before I started shooting today, I achieved 20 mpg combined, which is pretty darn close to what's promised. So I'm always happy when you can get either what's promised, better than promised, or at least pretty close. But this is a powertrain that I think does fit in quite well with a lot of what's offered from the competition, at least in the front-wheel drive-based competition. When you get into BMW, when you get into Mercedes-Benz, even though they do compete, they're a little bit, different strata. When it comes to the ride and handling experience here, I'm finding it very similar to the Ford Edge that I just test drove earlier this year. That's not a slam. Ford Edge actually drives quite well, but it's very similar. Now, there is one thing that separates this from the Ford Edge, and that is this has the Lincoln Drive Control suspension. That means this has 3 different settings: comfort, normal, and sport. Comfort Well, that's the roly-poly waterbed ride, the floaty boat ride that you would compare to a 1970s era town car. There must be some people out there that still want that because Lincoln still gives it to them. Then there's normal, which is somewhere in between comfort and sport. Usually when I have a car with adjustable suspension, I almost always put it on sport because I prefer a stiff, firm ride that has tight handling. It's just, I grew up driving race cars, it's my preference. But oddly enough, on this one, the sport setting to me is actually harsh. They've actually tuned the suspension such that it's actually too much on this vehicle, I think. If we're a sport coupe or some kind of a performance car, that'd be different. But for a luxury SUV, it actually becomes harsh. It makes things rattle in here. It makes things squeak. It really sort of detracts from the overall driving experience. So I've left it on normal, even though even the normal has a little bit more of a floating sensation than I prefer. In the end though, it still has a relatively quiet ride, although there is a little bit more road noise here than I would expect. Out here in the neighborhood, it's pretty quiet. It's only when you get on the highway that might have noisy pavement do you really get a lot of road noise that, to me, just isn't in keeping with a vehicle in this price range. When it comes to ride and handling, over the SRX, what they've done here is they've lengthened the vehicle by a few inches, the wheelbase in particular, but it's also a lot lighter than before because it's got a stiffer overall structure that also has a lot of advanced materials, a lot of high-strength steels, and a lot of new design techniques that General Motors has been implementing that reduce the weight while keeping the body strong. And so when that comes to handling, they've really been able to sort of play it up a little bit with the suspension, and the suspension actually has an adjustable mode here. Because we're on the mid to upper level trim grades, this has the adaptive suspension, which means it not only changes when you set the mode from touring to sport, but it's also able to sort of automatically react to a lot of your inputs out there. But we're just kind of cruising through my neighborhood right now, and the first thing I'm really noticing is, like you'd expect in this class, it's very quiet in here. A lot of quiet tuning going on with the overall structure and sound deadening, the bushings, the way the suspension has been bolted to the chassis. You don't get a lot of harshness in here, even with those 20-inch wheels, and that's a good thing. But now that we're out here at speed a little bit more, the wind noise is also pretty low, and I've got this on sport mode, so I usually like to have sport mode because when I get into curves and when I like to, well, turn, I like the feeling you get a little bit more than on the touring or softer modes, because I typically like a sharper feel, and I'm definitely getting that here. In the end, this was a good apples to apples comparison in spite of the slight differences in equipment, trims, and options, because they were still very much equals in my mind. Even though the Lincoln had some extra power and more interior upgrades, I tended to appreciate the Cadillac more of the two because it just had more of a genuine luxury brand feel. And at the end of the day, the rub for me was the fact that when I sat behind the wheel of the Lincoln, it just felt like a really nice Ford. I mean, it felt like a Ford, it smelled like a Ford, the switchgear, a lot of pieces and parts really just felt like they were out of the same bin for the Ford Edge. The Cadillac, on the other hand, didn't really share anything with many other General Motors vehicles. It really stood on its own as its own brand. It just felt different. So if I were picking one of these, I'd probably go with the Cadillac because it just felt like a luxury brand. That simple. Now, we have two test drives. You can see the test drive on either one of these two vehicles. A lot more detail than we got into here. So just click here for the Lincoln, click there for the Cadillac, and stay tuned. I'm Sam Haymar for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the rides.